We welcome you. Thank you for coming out on this crisp evening. I understand it's going to be crisper yet, so we won't go into that at all. We're glad that you could make it today. I'm glad we have a couple of young people in the group too. That's younger than 50 is what I meant. Excuse me, let me rephrase that. I'm not in that group. Today we're going to be putting on two programs for you. One is the FALCON, a little bit of the background so that you understand what we're talking about. This was done by Drexel Drake, and it was a suave detective. Came first to the screen in a slick series of RKO radio pictures. From there, it was only one step to radio, with Barry Kruger playing the role on ABC in the fall of 1943. I will not ask how many of you remember that program. I don't. I was too young. Don't answer that. Never mind. I was too young. That's all. My memories, but that's good. Okay. Then in 1945, the FALCON emerged on the Mutual Network as a Tuesday night mystery series. James Megan starred as Michael Waring, and here's how he described the detective. A freelance detective who was always ready with a hand for oppressed men and an eye for repressed women. Waring, for reasons more dramatic than practical, was known to friends and foe alike as the FALCON. The format was built around the telephone. The show begins with the phone ringing. That's not the phone. Inevitably, there was some gorgeous dish on the other end. Waring's greeting was smooth, laced with a slight touch of British put-on, and very identifiable, always addressing women as Angel. He begged out of a date each week with such excuses as, well, I've got to teach some gangsters that you can't get away with murder, especially since the murder they want to get away with is mine. That was his entree as the bouncy FALCON theme blended into an opening signature. Waring's style was somewhat between Ellery Queen and Richard Diamond. He had a fine eye for detail, but was usually on the outs with the cops. Little mattered in his show, as in many detective thrillers on the air, the cops were stupid always. I should have put an ad lib right in here. I hope there's no cops in here. There's no, because it's not my view. That's what was written. Okay. Little matter. Okay. And I'm shortly, it's real fast. The Mutual series was sponsored by Gem Razors and Blades and continued one of the most memorable commercials in the era. In a whispering voice, the announcer spoke against the ticking and tolling of a clock, dropping each word between the clock's chimes. The commercial sounded like this: avoid 5 o'clock. What's the next word? Shadow. Use Gem Blades. Use Gem Blades. The show was produced by a couple of guys that you're not that interested in anyhow. He played the title role. Megan played the title role for several seasons, then passed it to a succession of other actors. The Gem Razor Tuesday night series ran on Mutual Radio from 1945 through spring of 47. Then Mutual moved it to Monday. Well, I'm not going to read all the rest of this. In 1949, the announcer was Ed Hurley. David, where else was Ed Hurley nowadays? Yeah. He was always for Kraft Foods. He was announcer for Kraft Foods, is our sponsor right now, which sponsored the show on NBC Sunday nights until 1951. The show continued, was last heard in 1954. Without further ado, the FALCON.
Hello? Hello? Yes, this is the FALCON speaking. Oh, Lois, I'm glad you called. You'll have to give me a rain check, Angel. Some people are given a brawl and they insist I attend. Uh-huh. If I'm not there to be the life of the party, maybe they're going to be the death of me.
Once again, the adventures of the Falcon, dedicated to private investigators everywhere, those hard-hitting detectives who, like Mike Waring, risk their lives to aid law enforcement agencies. So join him now when the Falcon solves the case of the murdering Mrs. It's early evening in New York, and in the shabby kitchen at the Belmore, a blonde named Laura McKenna prepares dinner for her man. But this is one meal neither of the McKennas are destined to eat.
That you, Mike?
Yeah.
Wait a second, honey.
Hiya, doll.
Take off your coat. Dinner will be ready in 20 minutes.
Paul Newcomb drop off a package for me.
Yeah, it's on the table. Mac,
Ain't it a beauty?
where did that gun come from?
Borrowed it from Paul. I'm going back in business.
No.
Yeah. Paul saw a good thing on 84th Street. A jewelry shop run by a fella named Vance.
And he talked you into heisting it?
He could have gotten 100 guys.
I won't let you do it.
Oh, don't talk like it's something.
I mean it, Mac. If anything happens
Nothing's
to you...
gonna happen. A kid could handle this job.
That's what you said in San Francisco before they sent you up.
Now, that was an accident. It couldn't happen again.
Well, you're not going to find out.
Well, what do you suggest? There's $8 left in the kitty.
We'll get by.
I don't want us to just get by. How do you think I feel when I see dames who don't have half your looks parading around with furs and diamonds?
Do you hear me complaining? I'm satisfied.
Well, I'm not.
You're not going to do it, Mac. Let Paul get himself another boy.
Look, that's enough. The discussion's over.
No, it's not. You step out that door, so help me. I'll call the cops.
What did you say? I'm sorry, baby.
No, you were right, Mac. I didn't mean what I said. You know, if anything happens...
I know. Don't worry, I'll be back in an hour.
Let me go with you. It'll be easier with the two of us.
No.
You're afraid.
No, I'm not afraid, but you'd only be in the way. Give us a kiss for luck, baby. I'm off to work.
I'm terribly sorry, sir, but we're closed for the night.
Oh, come on, mister. Give me a break. It's my girl's birthday.
I put all my stock away.
Well, how long would it take for you to open your safe? I saw an engagement ring in the window this afternoon that was just perfect.
An engagement ring.
Yeah, it was marked $850. She'll be crazy about it.
Well, in that case...
Thanks a lot, Mr. Vance.
If you'll just wait a minute.
Sure. Do you happen to remember how much it weighed?
1.5 carats.
1.5, Suppose I wanted something bigger, say about 4?
I'm sure we could accommodate you. Here we are. Now, if you just look over this tray...
Yeah, but why don't I do it at home?
What?
All right, Vance. Keep your hands on the showcase. This is a heist.
But really...
Just keep them where they are.
You're making a grave mistake, young man. Now, if you listen to me, you...
What's that?
I don't know.
You don't know. Aren't you the cute one when you stepped on the alarm? Ah! You couldn't leave well enough alone.
All right, you fellas. Let's hurry it up and get out of here. Myers, be sure you get a shot of the showcase.
Greetings, men.
Oh, no. Wouldn't you know it?
Well, if it isn't Sergeant Pulaski. Where's Corbett?
He's lucky. He's got a day off. What are you doing here, Waring?
I represent the insurance company.
Well, fellas, we can all go home now. The Falcon is on the case.
Hey, you better stick around, men. You might learn something. What do you got, Steve?
Very little.
What about Vance?
Died about an hour ago.
Oh, tough. Did he talk before he went?
Not much. Here's a description of his killer.
Let's see. Blonde hair, blue eyes, 5'9", small mole on right cheek, V-shaped scar on left wrist. V-shaped scar. Now that's funny.
What's so funny about it?
Sounds like a boy I knew in San Francisco.
Well?
Well, it couldn't be him. Last I heard, Mac was serving 5 to 10 in San Quentin.
Mac who?
Mac McKenna.
What made you think it's him?
That scar. He got it in a knifing. Couldn't be the same one.
Couldn't it? Suppose I told you that Mr. McKenna is now guesting in our fair city.
He's what?
I got it from a stoolie last week. He's living with his wife at the Belmore.
Oh, no, it sounds too easy.
Well, I'm going to pick him up just for luck. Come along and see how it's done.
That you, Paul?
Yeah.
All right. Wait a minute.
Hello, Mac.
Hey, wait a minute. What
Remember me?
No, can't say I do.
Name's Waring. We met on the coast some years back.
So?
So now that we got me identified, I'd like you to meet Sergeant Steve Pulaski here. Well, it looks like you were right, Steve.
Looks like.
What are you babbling about?
Steve heard a rumble you were in town. I thought it was impossible. Last I heard you were in San Francisco.
I didn't like the climate.
I don't think you'll like New York any better, particularly around 84th Street.
Come again?
A jewelry shop up there was heisted last night. The proprietor was killed.
I don't know anything about it.
How do you account for the fact that Steve found your fingerprints on the showcase?
You're crazy.
Why? Wear gloves?
Well, you're nuts. Wait a minute. I'll prove it to you.
Watch him, Sergeant.
Hold it, boy.
I just wanted to get my coat.
Don't strain yourself. Get it, Knight.
You bet. Well, what have we got here?
What is it? 38.
Yeah. It's been fired recently. All right, Sergeant, since Mac is so fond of jewelry, let him try on your bracelets for size.
Hey, McKenna,
What do you want?
you got company.
Mac,
Hiya, Laura.
You're gonna have 10 minutes.
let me look at you. How are you, honey?
Did I change much?
I'm gonna get you out.
Huh. You got a file in your bag?
I'll work it somehow. I'll get the best lawyer.
Oh, no. Save your money, babe.
But if I hired...
Look, Laura, I never kidded you for a minute. I'm a gone gosling.
No!
You gotta face the facts, baby. They got me dead to rights. They got my gun.
Someone ratted.
No,
It was Paul.
nothing of the kind. It was a fluke. Remember Mike Waring?
Private detective they call the FALCON. The FALCON?
Yeah, well, it seems he represents the insurance company. He got lucky. He saw the description Vance gave and he thought of me.
Oh, it couldn't happen that way.
No, but it did.
I don't believe it. I got a feeling, Paul.
Look, forget it. Paul had nothing to do with it. It was Mike Waring.
Well, I'll pay him back for this. I'll get him for you, Mac, if it's the last thing I do.
Now, don't talk like that.
I tell you, I'll get him.
How?
Don't ask me, but I'll manage it some way that you can depend on.
You're wasting your time, mister.
Huh?
Mr. Waring ain't in.
Well, that's a nice howdy-do. I was supposed to meet him here.
Are you Sergeant Pulaski?
That's right.
Well, he told me to give you this note.
Yeah. Dear Steve, sorry I had to rush off, but the insurance company wanted to see me on the Vance heist. Eddie, the elevator man, will let you in. Bottle in my desk, help yourself. You Eddie?
Yeah, that's right.
Got a pass key or do I use mine?
You sure it'll be all right with Mr. Waring?
Here, look for yourself.
Yeah, let me see. Eddie will let you in. Guess it's okay. Here you are.
Thanks a lot, Eddie. You've been a great... Oh!
Sergeant! Sergeant!
Hours have passed since Sergeant Steve Pulaski was killed while entering Mike Waring's apartment. And now, at the scene of the crime...
All right, Doc. You can move the body anytime you want.
Mind if I take a peek first, Sergeant?
Oh, no, he ain't gonna tell you anything, Mike.
Well, whoever did it wasn't taking any chances. Probably standing right by the closet.
Yeah.
The minute the door opened, they fired.
Well, that's what the elevator man said.
Did Eddie get a peek at the killer?
Haven't asked him yet.
Well, what are you waiting for? Eddie!
You want me, Mr. Waring?
Yeah, come over here.
I don't feel so good.
I don't blame you.
You should have seen it, Mr. Waring. It was awful. Every time I think of it...
Well, don't.
You better get my drink.
Yeah. Here you are, Eddie.
I don't want it.
Come on. This is good for whatever ails you. Now, tell me exactly what happened.
Well, I just opened the door for him, and he walked in. Then there was this shot.
Go on.
But that's all I remember.
Did you see anyone in here?
No. I just ran down the hall and got Dr. Wilbur. All I could think of was getting help. Please, Mr. Waring, can I go now?
All right.
I'll be downstairs if you want me.
Well, he was a great help.
Well, he did the best he could.
Corbett?
I can't tell you how sorry I am about this. If I had been here,
you would have gotten it instead.
Yeah, I guess so.
Who do you know that loves you this much?
Offhand, I can't think of a soul.
Oh, come on, Mike, use your head. You must have annoyed someone recently.
Well, I do that once a week.
Well, one of them took it real personally.
The only one that comes to my mind is Mac McKenna.
McKenna?
I was representing the insurance company in that Vance jewelry stick-up, and when Steve described the killer, I thought of McKenna as a suspect.
Do you think Mac would...
Oh, my mental telepathy? You got him tucked away safe and sound?
Oh, yeah. Hey, you got that stuff out there?
Yeah, here it is.
Ah, thank you. Boys, some collection. Look at this, a billfold with $8, a badge, service revolver, and a pair of bracelets.
Not much.
Well, which some of those newspaper boys who keep yapping about crooked cops ought to see this. What Steve want to see you about?
Darn if I know, Corbett. He called me from headquarters this morning to set up a date.
Any idea what it was?
Nope, he didn't want to discuss it on the phone. I got a hunch it was personal.
Reminds me,
What?
somebody's got to break the news to Mrs. Pulaski.
What? You mean Steve was married?
Yeah, just a month ago.
Fine. Well, who's gonna tell her?
You?
Now listen, Corbett.
Come on, Mike, it's the least you can do. After all, that bullet was meant for you.
Okay, Sarge. I'd rather have stopped that slug than do this. I got a feeling this will be just as bad.
Just a second.
Mrs. Pulaski?
Yes?
My name is Mike Waring.
Oh, of course. Steve often speaks of you. Won't you come in?
Thank you.
Steve isn't home right now, but I expect him any minute. Oh, I suppose I should apologize for the looks of this place.
Oh, no.
I guess I'm not much of a housewife, but I'll learn.
I'm sure you will.
Now, look at me yakking away like crazy. Here, let me take your coat.
No, please don't bother. I can't stay long.
Well, aren't you going to wait for Steve?
Well,
He'll be awfully disappointed if he missed you.
Look, Mrs. Pulaski, there's something I have to tell you.
What?
Now, you've got to understand, Steve was a cop, and in this business...
What do you mean, was a cop?
Here, you better sit down.
What happened to him?
Look, Mrs. Pulaski...
He's been hurt. That it?
Yes.
Well, where is he? I've got to go see him.
You can't.
What do you mean I can't? I'm his wife.
I know that, but you see, it's...
What are you trying to tell me?
He's dead.
Oh, no. No, I don't believe it.
I'm sorry.
He can't be.
It was my fault indirectly. You see, the killer was trying to get me.
Oh, Steve. Steve,
Now, Mrs. Pulaski, you've got to be brave. Steve would want you to be.
Brave? I never wanted him to be a cop. If he'd listened to me...
He couldn't be anything else. He was cut out for the job. He liked it.
Oh, please, leave me alone.
Well, can I get you anything?
No.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I promise you I'll get the responsible party.
Will that bring Steve back?
Well, I just want you to know that...
I know that my husband's dead. That's enough for me. Now go away and leave me alone.
More coffee, Mike?
No, I've had enough.
Well, how'd it go?
Bad. Say, do you know if Mrs. Pulaski has any relatives?
No, not as far as I know.
Well, I wonder what she's going to do. She doesn't look like a girl who's used to working.
Well, Steve's insurance, the money from the police pension fund, she'll do all right.
I hope so. So help me, Corbett. If it's the last thing I do, I'll get him.
If I don't get him first.
Say, wait a minute.
Huh?
Why do we keep saying him?
Huh?
We keep referring to the killer as a him. Couldn't it be a woman?
Well, you ought to know. The him was after you. Look, can you think of any dame that you've loused up recently?
Oh, what about McKenna's wife?
Huh?
As I recall, she was very devoted to Mac.
So?
So she might feel I was responsible for putting him away. This could be her way of balancing the books.
You're nuts.
Ah, there's one way to find out. I'm going up to see her. I'll let you know how I make out.
Yes,
Mrs. McKenna,
that's right.
I'd like a word with you.
I'm busy.
Well, you can't be that busy.
Now, look, mister, I don't know who you are.
Why not ask me?
Frankly, I don't care.
My name is Mike Waring.
Mike Waring? Why, you dirty...
Hey, take it easy.
Let go.
Calm down.
Let me go.
Behave yourself.
How
Will you
dare
behave?
you?
I imagine you're pretty surprised to see me.
Am I?
Yes, you killed the wrong boy. It was a police sergeant named Steve Pulaski.
Crazy.
Doesn't the fact that I'm alive convince you?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Look, you're crazy about Mac. When you found out I was instrumental in nailing him, you wanted to get even.
And I will.
Oh, no, you won't, Laura. In this league, you get one chance. You muffed yours. Now get your coat. We're going places.
Well, what do you have to say for yourself, Laura?
Nothing.
Oh, then you admit you killed Sergeant Pulaski.
I admit nothing of the kind.
You tried to gun me in when Steve walked in. You didn't ask for credentials. You just blazed away.
I'm not doing any more talking.
Well, you'll change your mind. How would you like to see your husband?
Huh?
I asked if you'd like to see Mac.
Could I?
If you cooperate.
All right. I'll tell you anything you want to know.
You were going to kill Waring.
That's right. Now can I see Mac?
So you got into his apartment.
Uh-huh.
You got into his apartment.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, my door was locked.
I used the fire escape.
That put you in my bedroom?
Yeah. Now can I see Mac?
No.
But you promised me.
I promised you you'd see him if you'd cooperate, but you're not. How did you get into my apartment?
I told you through the fire escape.
That leads to the kitchen.
Oh, you got me all mixed up. I meant the kitchen.
Oh, what about the window there?
It was open.
No, it wasn't. I distinctly remember shutting it before
I
left.
want to see Mac.
Well, what do you say, Mike?
Okay.
Lois, take Mrs. McKenna down to see her husband and then lock her up.
Oh, thanks a lot, Sergeant. You won't forget this.
Well, can you beat that? She means it.
Yeah, she's really mad for that guy.
Well, she must be to pull that silly stunt that she pulled.
Listen, Corbett, I want you to do me a favor. Release her.
You nuts?
You don't have to worry. She won't skip. McKenna will hold her like a magnet.
What's the idea?
Because I got a hunch I want to test, and without Mrs. McKenna on the loose, I can't.
Oh, you and your hunches.
I don't think she's telling the truth.
She admitted trying to get you.
I know that, but there's something about this that bothers me.
You won't be satisfied until she does kill you.
All right, then you can say I told you so. Now, what do you say, Corbett?
Well, okay. But if it doesn't pay off, I'll have your heart with a little A1 sauce. It ought to be really tasty.
Yes?
Mrs. Pulaski,
Yes?
this is Mike Waring. How do you feel?
How do you think I feel?
Well, I'm sorry. I only called to tell you that we finally got a line on Steve's murderer.
So,
So, wouldn't you like to know who it was?
will that bring Steve back?
Well, I suppose you're right. Still, I thought you'd be interested. You see, this party was trying to kill me. I figure she'll try again.
What do you mean?
Well, I believe this woman is motivated by revenge. If I'm right, Steve's death doesn't satisfy her. Only mine will, and that's how we plan to nab her. What do you think?
It doesn't matter what I think. All I know is that Steve is gone. Now, let me alone.
Now, show me exactly what happened when Sergeant Pulaski came here this afternoon.
Well, the first time I saw him, he was banging on your door. He looked kind of upset because you weren't in.
That's when you gave him my note?
Yeah. Then he told me you said it was all right for him to wait inside.
Where were you standing at the time?
Right about, here.
All right, go on.
So I pulled out my pass key and opened the door.
Show me how.
You mean you want me to go through the whole thing again?
Uh-huh. I guess Steve was here.
Uh-huh.
All right, now open the door like you did.
That's how it was. And then just as he stepped into the room... Oh! Mr. Waring! Mr. Waring!
20 minutes have passed since Mike and Eddie attempted to reenact the murder of Sergeant Steve Pulaski. Unfortunately, the effect was almost as dramatic.
All right, Mike, take a swig of this.
What happened?
You tell me. You were here.
Well, I guess...
Hey, that shoulder's gonna be stiff for a week.
Never mind. Let me up.
No. You stay there till the doc comes.
I'm all right. Well, who was it?
You ask me.
Well, didn't Eddie...
He did exactly the first thing he did the first time. He ran off to get help.
Then he didn't see who fired the shot.
Nope.
Oh.
Well, I guess it's true about people repeating their mistakes.
So I got myself plugged for nothing.
It's your own fault. I told you Mrs. McKenna was our baby.
Well, looks like you were right.
Well, I'll put out a call for her.
Hey, wait a minute, Sergeant. I just thought of something.
What's the matter? You want to give her another chance?
No, I tell you, I've got it all figured out. I know we can nail the killer for sure.
How?
Look, I'm going to need a little help. Where's my coat?
No, don't be silly. You're in no condition to travel.
I'll survive, which is a lot more than I can say for Steve's killer. Now, get me my coat.
Yes?
Hello, Mrs. Pulaski. You remember me?
Mr. Waring, what happened?
Oh, my shoulder? Nah, it's nothing.
Yeah, this happens practically once a week.
Well, this is Sergeant Corbett.
Yes, I know.
I can't tell you how sorry I am about Steve, Mrs. Pulaski. May we...
Of course.
Thanks.
I suppose I should apologize, Mr. Waring.
What for?
Well, I wasn't very courteous when you called.
Well, that's understandable. You were under a strain.
Have you made any progress?
Yes, plenty. Why do you think I'm wearing my arm in a sling?
I don't understand you.
Well, the killer took a shot at me, but I was luckier than Steve.
Well, then you know who it was.
I think so.
We even got a confession.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, Sergeant, because I told you that there was something about it that bothered me. Well, now I know what it was.
Yeah? What?
That was a phony. Laura only made it so she could see her husband.
I don't understand.
Well, you see, Mrs. Pulaski, originally we thought this was a plot to kill me that misfired. So we went around looking for people who disliked me. That's how we came up with Mrs. McKenna.
Well, what's wrong with that?
Well, let's consider the actual result in the case. Now, who was the victim?
My husband.
Well, suppose it wasn't an accident at all. Suppose someone was really after Steve. You see the possibilities?
No.
Well, then we come up with a different group of suspects. Remember the personal effects that they found on his body?
Yes. There was a wallet with $8, a badge, and a gun.
Uh-huh. Well, doesn't it strike you that there was something missing?
No.
Well, what happened to his skeleton keys?
What are you talking about?
They weren't on his body. Shall I tell you why? Because the killer used them to get into my apartment. The killer knew that Steve was headed there to see me. Now, who would have had the best opportunity to know that appointment and to lift the keys.
Who?
You.
What?
Yes, you were real clever, Angel, but you made one mistake. And in this game, that's enough to put you away. All right, Corbett, prove it to her.
I can't get over it. Hey, when I think it was Mrs. Pulaski.
Well, that's who it was, Sergeant.
But why, Mike?
Well, she had big financial ideas.
Ah, you mean she knocked Steve off for his insurance?
Uh-huh. It was as simple as that. What complicated the deal was that we thought I was supposed to be the victim. That's why she made that second attempt. That was calculated to make us all the more certain that Steve was killed accidentally.
You know, it's a funny world. Here we had two wives, one married to a crook and the other to a cop. And the crook's wife would have given her life for her husband.
And the cop's wife took his.
Yeah.
Well, fortunately, it very seldom happens that way. But it all goes to prove one thing.
Eh? What?
Marriage may be a great institution, but in some cases, it can be murder. Good night, Sergeant.
Hey, don't touch that dial. Stay with us, and we'll bring you another old-time radio favorite, the magnificent Montague. But first, here's the cast of the Falcon. Falcon, hope we didn't fly too fast for you. Pronounce it any way you like. Our brilliant detective, Mike Waring, was Dave Sanchi. The gun moll who was bound to get even was Nell Brennan. Her husband made one too many mistakes, Mac McKenna, played by Jay Summerfield. The jeweler, Mr. Vance, was Marty McNulty, who also was the master of the sound effects. Eddie, who had a practice of running away from things, was Tom Duggan. And Sergeant Corbett, who wasn't sure of Mike's idea, was Bob Dolan. The man with few words, I think maybe 4 or 5, was Roger Morris. Mrs. Pulaski, the wife who thought she could get a fortune but only ended up with a pair of bracelets, was Ellie Babcock. Sergeant Steve Pulaski, who didn't realize what he was worth to his wife, was Andre Dixon. This is your announcer, Herb Thompson, inviting you to stay tuned for the next program, The Magnificent Montague.